Riggs, Michael Fortune, and Shelley Nazir tonight. They are not able to make it and asked to be excused. We're going to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Bob Washburn's going to get us on that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Minutes, approval of minutes from September 28th. Getting months mixed up here. Sorry. I'll turn on the microphone, Ryan. There, got it.
Thank you.
So, any changes to the minutes from September 28th?
Line 82, I think that it should be topography rather than typography. Is that correct? Topographical map.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Did a lot with typecasting here.
And then line 147, Miss Perry citing issues back then rather than then. I think it's back then, meaning when they have the flooding. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Joe, no changes or? I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the minutes for September 28th.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes for September 28th with edits. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. So the approval of the minutes with the changes on lines 82 and line 147 is passed. Public comments. Any public comments? Jared, you're the only one here tonight. It's Jared, right? Yeah. Okay. Do you have any public comments that you want to make? Not regarding your project, but just Jared. Okay. Jared Smith is from Providence. I can't introduce you this way because you can't do that on other nights. I guess everybody's gone to UEA vacation early. Okay, we'll dispense with any public comments. We have no public hearings tonight, and we have no legislative actions. We do have 3 administrative items we need to address. Jared, is yours? Are you here regarding the Latham small subdivision?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to start with that one, and we're going to start with what's her name?
Scarlett.
Scarlett.
That's fine, Brian.
Scarlett understands you got the same problem. Would you indoctrinate us on what the staff has found out and thought about?
Okay. This is an amendment of a subdivision, a 2-lot subdivision. So on the staff report, it shows each lot number separately because they each have a separate address and a separate parcel ID. Jared and Sarah own lot 2, and Jared's father Larry owns lot 1. And the purpose is to increase the size of lot 2 and decrease the size of lot 1. It's a boundary line, or excuse me, it's a lot line adjustment. And we look at the findings of fact. We look at Utah code. We look at our, I'm just going to abbreviate, and because these are in with the packet, we look at Utah code. We look at our general plan. We look at our master plans. The Utah code does define what a lot line adjustment is and what it isn't. It also defines what a municipal utility easement is. That's important because we'll get to the reason why that's important in a few minutes, but it's in here so that you can see the difference between a municipal utility easement and a public utility easement. There's a couple different types of public utility easements. There's a protected and then just a general public utility easement. And it talks about the specified public utilities. That's all out of state code. State code also tells us how we can amend a subdivision. It tells us that the land use approval of the vacation or amended plat, that you have to look for two things. And this is where the municipal utility easement is important. There is good cause for the vacation or the amendment, and that no public street or municipal utility easement has been vacated or amended. A public utility easement is going to be adjusted, but the municipal utility easement, this was recorded before there is even such a thing as municipal utility easement. So the recording on the plat is a public utility easement, and so we have to follow that definition. Then we look at our city code for the final plat requirements, and I just literally take our code and use it like a checklist and go down the list. The only thing that has a red comment by it is that the boundary descriptions. This amendment came in with the stamped and signed surveyors, with the surveyor stamp and signed by the surveyor. And so we just need the city engineer to verify the boundary descriptions, and he'll do that at the time that he gets ready to sign it. So the conclusions are that we have complied with Utah Code Title 10, Chapter 9A, Section 6, which is the subdivision plat. We've looked at our general plan and our master plan. This proposed final plat is consistent with the general plan and development in the surrounding areas. It's located next to, it's adjacent to a city core area. It's got regional parks in the area, neighborhood parks, and it's got local parks, sorry, a neighborhood park, a couple of neighborhood parks, and a regional park in the area. The master plan, this is just kind of a FYI, the master plan does identify Second West as a major collector and recommends a striped bike lane from 100 North south to Millville, which would be in front of this house. The plan also recommends a future roundabout at the intersection of 200 West and 300 South. If you want to know timing on that, Ryan could probably address that a little bit better than I can. I want to say the plan says that's in 2050.
Or the roundabout.
Yes.
The ways off.
Yeah, it's quite a ways off. So, but it's in the plan, and so I just wanted to make note of it.
Thank you.
It does meet the definition of a lot line adjustment. One of the things with a lot line adjustment, it doesn't require a public hearing. Sometimes amended plats do require a public hearing. This one doesn't. It doesn't have a municipal utility easement. It does not show a protected utility easement. It does show public utility easements, and signatures from the various utility companies are required on the final plat. So they will be aware of it. They will have to sign that they agree with it. We followed the processes. The Planning Commission is the appropriate land use authority to consider an amended plat. The findings in red in the finding of fact section are items that need additional information or clarification. So in the recommended conditions are that they address the comments in red, which actually our city engineer will do that prior to signing it. Aaron Walker also submitted a review letter, which is in the packet. Most of his review has to do with what happens if building occurs on the lots, not necessarily with the plat or with the lot line adjustment per se. And then address any comments from other staff members. And to date, I haven't received any other comments. The other condition, three conditions actually. Prior to approval, the Planning Commission must list their findings for good cause. And prior to recording, the applicant will prepare a recordable plat that meets the requirements listed in Providence City Code 1133. And then the final one, the applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and Providence City rules, laws, codes, ordinances. Approval by the city of any application or paperwork that does not alleviate the owners, does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. So, any questions on that?
It's a letter from, or is there a map of what the change is going to look like?
Did I not give that to you?
I didn't see anything additional.
I apologize. I must have picked up the wrong PDF.
Jared, have you got one with you?
I can go make you one if you'll give me just a couple of
Thanks.
minutes. I will go get it made. I am very sorry. I apologize.
It's taken 6 months.
Don't count, right?
You'll be fine.
While she is out, can I have a,
We're gonna talk about the roundabout in 2050.
well, it'll be earlier than that, but, no, I sent a training for the cash summit. So if you want to go, just let me know. So yeah, they all roll together.
I'll watch for that.
It is on the 9th of November. Anyway, no, that's when the training is, the 9th of November.
When did you send it?
Because today's still October. So, I would look at the roundabout, and I was thinking the 3rd east instead of 3rd south, but the roundabout will be quite a bit sooner. But it probably won't affect their property. It would affect the others kitty corner to them on the one just to the north and the one to the west. But if we overlaid it, it's probably not going to affect theirs. But they should know that a roundabout's coming. Hopefully they're aware. He doesn't give you that indication. That's why a roundabout will be needed.
Is that coming before the one on 2nd West and 1st North?
This will be the next roundabout we build.
Nothing gonna work right now. You think this one's quicker?
This one will be built within the next, I was thinking on the other one but this one will be built within the next 5 years. Maybe.
Nice wide street on one side there. First,
It still doesn't line it up.
Pardon?
It still doesn't line it up.
I know, but it's much better than it was.
Yeah,
I use that intersection a lot. And sometimes it's a little tough, but it's not a big deal. I'm glad to see it's going to get straightened out.
we do have an application into the COG for a attempt to line up the street, to take and redesign it so that we would move the power pole that's there on the north side and remove it and move the asphalt even another 10, 12 feet to the north and try to still push it to get some alignment.
So most of the parking there on that north
Gone.
east corner is city property.
Everything to the fence is city property. So there's my error in saying it was out farther than it was. It's not.
And I emailed you a copy of
Yeah,
this.
I'll pull it up.
Oh. So we're reversing it. Go from L-shaped lot with Larry, switch it over to the L-shaped lot for Jared.
Yes,
Okay. And the easements look fine to you. There's no,
mhm.
the buildings made the, I guess they had to go around the buildings to make the lot line
It looks like they did, yes.
between two buildings. I'm guessing that you probably tear one of those down, but we'll ask you that in a minute, Jared. I don't have any questions. Any questions? Paul?
Yes, it's black and white.
You got the wet signature on it?
No, it should,
Okay, it's just colored.
yeah.
Okay.
Is this going to be built on?
No,
It's
the
just
homes are
changed.
existing. They're just changing the configuration of the lots themselves. And they understand if they were to want to build another, other than an accessory dwelling unit, but if they wanted to build another residential, primary residential structure, they'd have to subdivide that. But they're not doing that right now. They're just changing the size of the lots.
That helps a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett. Jared, would you like to come up? Tell us anything you'd like to tell us, and we got a few questions for you.
Okay. So the only thing I guess I would add to that is with this amended lot, on the northeast side of lot 1, right now with this newly amended one, the easement is on my dad's property. And I also access it with my truck and whatnot and pull into the other side. I would just hope that that easement, because it is on my dad's property, would not count as a second access on mine if this goes through. Just kind of looking to future, if you sell or whatever. That's not his plans, but I would just want to make sure that that was in there, because there is only one access right there and it's on his property. It's on that northeast side. It's into a driveway, and then I pull in and veer off the other.
But you work that out with the neighbor then. If he doesn't like you ran over his property, I'm sure he can.
And that's where I think Sarah has talked with Scarlett extensively, my wife, and kind of tried to work that out.
Now, there's no sidewalk on the north side of this, either parcels, is there?
There is a
The
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
Is there a curb and gutter?
Yes. On the north side of this parcel, and both sides of the parcel have
Okay.
sidewalk and curb and gutter, right?
Well, the cutout in the curb and gutter is there, and it's currently being used by Larry at lot 1.
Yeah.
So if you had a problem with the driveway, you would have to end up cutting.
Yeah.
And because how long has Larry owned lot 1? You know, it's been 15 years, 10 years.
Longer than that. I grew up.
You grew up there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've always been here since 1975.
So he rents it out now, or he lives in it?
He has, but now he's been going back and forth. He doesn't rent it out. He is up probably 2-3 times a week, comes up here, and he also still owns
Okay, cool.
renters.
I had some friends that lived there for a while, so I thought they owned it, but they moved a long time ago. Concerns, questions, discussions, Joe?
we have to find good cause and, you know, so I'd like to know what the reason for it is so we can help them out.
Good cause.
Why would I want to acquire it, I guess?
Yeah, why do you want to mow on?
Well, we've actually, since I built in I think 2005, the other property and subdivided it. We accessed that back pasture. We raised sheep, show it at the fair, and we have a garden back there. So we've always really taken care of that amount of land. It's just that as he gets up in years and whether he decides he wants to sell or what he wants to do, we've just worked it out with him to acquire that.
And how does this benefit you and your family?
Just in case something happens or they sell it, that we would still have access to it to continue to do the things we do.
And your new lot too, how many acres is that?
If it had that, it would be just under 1 acre, so it'd be 0.962, but currently it's about 1/3 of an acre without that.
Right, okay.
Well, this essentially keeps that garden area in the family.
Yeah.
If lot one would be sold.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're using the land now for, you used to use it for agricultural purposes.
Yeah.
Still do gardens,
Still do.
that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So currently, yeah.
Okay. I don't have any more questions, but if you'd like to sit right here.
Okay.
We'll let you sit there in case we've got more questions.
Okay.
And then you're welcome to leave when we go through these other 2 items. But you're welcome to stay too.
Right.
We're not the most exciting people in the world. Okay. Bob, any concerns? No questions? I think I saw the good cause was the access and the rights, the full rights to the full acre. Since he hasn't had rights to the acre, to the property. He's asking, he's made a deal with Larry that he could get full access and full rights to the acre property, the almost 1 acre property. I think we've got that. Joe, any concerns?
Not really.
Actually, I do have a question because is there a financial transaction? Are you buying that land from him? As part of this.
Make sure you're speaking to the mic.
Oh, sorry. Is there a financial transaction and are you
Yeah,
purchasing that?
so over the last several years, kind of a lease to own sort of agreement, just to utilize it. Yeah, and eventually, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion? Sparky gave us some tough criteria. All of a sudden, a little good cause on the end of it, and we've had that before, but it's been a while.
I'd make a motion that we approve the amended final plat for the Lathan small subdivision amendment number 1, adjusting a lot line within a 2-lot residential subdivision located in the general area of 310 south, 200 west, and adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions set forth in the staff report. Noting that the boundary description will have to be verified with the city engineer. And that the comments of Aaron Walker's letter
dated 10/5/22. And the other staff members' comments, if any, could be addressed before the final plat is signed and approved. And I propose as good cause the fact that it reflects a family agreement that as the applicant's father is getting older and probably doesn't want to take care of that much property. If the son does want to take care of it, that it facilitates property rights with respect to the citizens of Providence.
Got a motion for and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Lathan, okay, aye. Do I need to vote today? Okay. None opposed, so it's unanimous. Aye. Small subdivision amendment. And what did we do? We accepted it and we made the final, we approved the final plat.
Subject to the conditions.
Subject to the conditions. We're not sending this off to the city council or anything like that. So you're one more step along the way, Jared. Like some extra copies.
Just have Sarah call me and I'll tell her what the next step is.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having everything ready. That's great. Okay, we're gonna go to study item. Sorry. It's an administrative item. We're done with the administrative items. Item number 1. Lathan small subdivision amendment. Final plat. We're gonna go on to study item number 1. Amending city code 1041. Zoning districts established, and it appears as though someone wants to rename some of the zoning districts, to amend some of the names of the zoning districts. Yes, we need an explanation on this. Does Ryan want to do it?
I'll start and Scarlett can pitch in. No. I have a chair with a name tag, so I can stay, I think. I will if the chair requests, but this is we've had some confusion in some of the namings that we have. We're a little special in some of our name distinctions because they are a little inconsistent with some of our neighbors. If you look at River Heights, they have a number system that they use. If we look at the county, we asked the county planner when she was still here, but she's now left, right?
Yeah.
Lauren. So we asked her to kind of put together some ideas of standardized naming structure. This matches many cities throughout the state and just kind of matches that. It does, honestly, it does remove some of the language that is trying to term it, but subjective, I guess. High, medium, low are kind of subjective terms. High, medium, and low for Providence may be different than high, medium, and low for Logan or Salt Lake or Tooele or Canaryville or whoever you want to go. And so what we've tried to do here is just kind of match up the equivalent to a proposed, and it's just proposed. So you'll notice the rural residential district is an RR1, indicating that it's 1 unit per acre, an R120, an R112, so 20,000 square feet approximately. These are approximates. 12,000 square foot would be R12 would be a residential, one residential unit per 12,000 square feet. It kind of matches that up. There are some that we have a little bit more change to, but that high, medium, and that high, that large estate, medium, high, anyway, those have been used by us, but aren't necessarily consistent with other municipalities. So that's what's being brought up for, is to address that.
Explain the naming of what does R18 mean? I understood your RR1, that was real straightforward.
Right.
How did you go ahead?
The R18
What does that mean?
residential district, so that's one unit, one residential unit for 8,000 square foot. So that would be an 8,000 square foot lot and having one residential unit on it.
Oh, you're proposing 1 acre, 20,000 feet, 12,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 8,000 feet, 6,000 feet. Okay.
And those are matching what the term is, but when you read a single family large district, that it's not nearly as descriptive as a number system. But
And MHD is obvious. What about the multi-family residential, RM7 and 12?
so it's residential, it's multi, and then it would be 7 units per acre. And then the RM12 is residential, multifamily, and then 12 units per acre.
So what I would like the RM7 and RM12, the wording in there is exactly the same, multiple residential district. Is that whereas up above there where we went from single family high density to residential district R-1-6. Do we need to have a number in there so that these are distinguishable from each other?
Yeah, so this should actually be inside of the name. The RM7 should actually be within inside of the name. So sorry for the confusion.
Well, it looks like it's a direct translation of many of the zones we've got now. It's name change is all. Is that correct? We're not sliding two together or pulling one apart. Okay.
Oh,
Is there an intent to modify what these mean? Just change the name.
the name is what is being proposed at this. This is all of what this is being proposed. So this this is all the proposal. If you want more, you can open up more. But this is all that's being proposed right now. Thank you for leading the witness.
So I have a,
You don't know my drive, you can ask a woman, and they're gonna get in trouble with what color of blouse she has on. He knows you want it to say blue. And she'll tell you every color of socks, pants, glasses. She won't answer the question. Just won't give what you want. So,
It is as straightforward as what it appears. I think that's all that we're trying to do now. You are welcome to do more. That is in your prerogative. It has now been passed from staff at this point to planning commission, and now it belongs to you. What you would like to do with it is from here.
For any land use ordinance, we need to set it up for a public hearing. And then goes around to the council.
That's correct. Now, there is one residential life cycle residential district wasn't changed. That is something that through the process politically it might be. And you may desire a new political name for it. It wasn't in the process because it is It's kind of a district, it's kind of unique for us. And not every place has it. Some other places call it,
Some of them call it a residential mix. So you could maybe look at, and this one, it has a density of between 4 to 12 units per acre. So if you wanted to, you could call it residential, and instead of an M to get mixed up with multifamily, you could use an X for mixed residential. So you could do RX12, which would say residential mixed 12 units per acre maximum. If you wanted to kind of be consistent.
I would propose we just keep the name, so that if there are any paranoid citizens that think we're trying to make a change on the ordinance, they don't think that we're trying to circumvent their referendum.
That's a good point.
good point.
That's partially my thought too, is that we're changing the name, but not the underlying
No.
codes or rules or anything. And that has, in my mind, it has the appearance of, now we're gonna confuse everybody with changing the names, and then we just go ahead and do what we want to do without them understanding what it is that we're doing. But on the other hand, I feel like if we had some, if we were to look at the underlying guidelines for each of these, would it serve the city better to maybe make some changes to some of those as we're making changes to the name that make it so it's less troublesome from a political standpoint, from people being very concerned about density and that type of language. Do you know what I mean? Am I making any sense at
At
all?
this point, we have a huge elephant to eat. We've just done recodification, and there's a huge elephant to eat in lots of little pieces here and there. And this is just one bite of a big elephant. And if that's another bite you want to take, we are certainly willing to engage that as a staff. And we tried to keep it as simple and direct that this is all that we were proposing. But if you want to go that way and eat a bigger bite of the elephant, we're willing to go along. Is that a good analogy? I was trying to be direct and not and answer the question. It's okay.
I feel like if we're going to make a change to the name, it would be a good time to delve a little bit into the structure around what those mean, and see if we can make it more palatable. You know what? Does that make sense?
No, sir. I'll be honest. No, I don't know what you want. What do you want to correct? What do you want to change?
One of the things we found is exactly what you're saying, because of the way our names were. So we weren't consistent with common terminology. Ryan's correct in saying that River Heights uses the R1 terminology, the county does. But if you Google it, it pops up. I mean, R1 and RM, they're pretty common for residential 1 unit, residential multi-units. And so what we actually are trying to do without changing anything is just let people know that we are not so different than everybody else that they think we are. We really are the same. We just used creative names, but if, and this will go to public hearing. You can make comments tonight. You can suggest your changes, and we can certainly put those in and incorporate them. And then Ty will get it advertised for public hearing for your next meeting. So the public will get notice. We'll be able to explain to them our thought process, and you can take their input too. on it, but that's really all we are doing is trying to make the names more recognizable for just wherever somebody's coming from. They can see an R1 and they'll think, oh, I know what they're talking about, instead of single family large. So,
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. But I know that when we had our last hearing about Vineyard Phase
Yeah.
2, there was a lot of concern about medium and high density. And when you talked about the number of units per acre was basically the same between the two or something. So there was very little difference between those two.
right,
And so,
Density, but not availability of square, the size of lot, but you couldn't break them up into more lots. You still have the same density, but you could have a smaller lot at a zoning difference. So these are lot size designation to be comparable. But you'll see River Heights, you can look up here, River Heights has the R18. We're matching to make sure that when people look at this right here, a single family high, and Brookside is generally, I think they're 8,000 square foot lots, and the R18, to try to compare those across the board that's not a comparison that matches. Then you go to Logan, they do the same thing. They use a number system. There's a little different, but in R6 and R4, you can easily convert the change between cities that way. Ours is just inconsistent.
but our names, the names themselves are not, don't designate the density. They designate either the lot size or the number of units per acre, which is a density in multifamily. But as far as the density in the single family districts, the names are not designating that. They're not designating 3.45 units per acre or 5.5 units per acre or 1 unit. Well, the RR1 does, but that's just because it happens to be 1 unit per acre. So the names themselves, and the names that Ryan just alluded to on or show on the screen from the 2 neighboring cities, that's not density either. That's 1 unit per how many square feet that minimum lot size is. So if we wanted to put the density in, then we would have to have another dash and then put, which I think would confuse people more.
And you'll see that even our neighbor to the south uses that same designation. We would have an extra designation in it, but at that point they're using residential 1 acre lots. And it is trying to be consistent and not be, we're not trying to bait and switch somebody on something of trying to get into the name change and then trying to make it fix something else. We're saying this is bringing a consistent naming structure so that we have a first, middle, and last name like our neighbors do.
I brought that up because of our last hearing. Yes, whatever it was that we were talking about was very similar between you and I. And I thought if that's the case, then maybe this would be a time to address that. If we're,
And honestly, we didn't want this to come before that change because we don't want it to appear like we're changing it to confuse them before the referendum one. This is following, and we have waited to try to do this because we don't want to appear to be doing anything nefarious. We're really trying we're just trying to be consistent. And
I'm pretty new. So that was my first thought when I saw this. I was just gonna say, I have family in the area.
have a family yet. So subdivision down in North Ogden, and they have the R12, R8, R6. And it was just really easy in the discussion with the planning commission down there when they talked about density and referring, you didn't have to keep in your mind two sets of keys. You just flow through them. So I actually like it. I'd make a recommendation to put the life cycle residential district. You just add, what is it, 4/12, so that, you know, we could take a look at it and just, you know, might not be obvious to everybody, but after a while, I think you get used to knowing that that's the range of density that you could have in it.
Agreed. And I think we're going to do the same thing with mixed use. So those are both combinations of other zoning designations.
If you're through with the discussion, I'd like to just make a motion that we set it up, move it forward with the public hearing for the next meeting with as many members of the planning commission can be here. And that's all the action we take on it for the time being.
My concern was that this is really important. And that maybe we want to have the other three members here, that we should table it and have another discussion about it, another study items. And so
I think it's just, I mean, after the public comment, we can have all the discussion we want.
okay,
So I don't think it prejudices them in any regard. If I thought it did,
Okay.
I wouldn't.
I
make that
understand.
suggestion.
I agree. I think let the public have their say. That would be really important for us to know.
Okay, so you've got a proposal that we table it. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that we go ahead and send it to
Take it to public hearing.
Yeah, I understand and feel for you. Let's do it my way.
On the next agenda for the public planning commission and have the public hearing on it, and also put on it after the public hearing, a discussion with the full commission. I don't know.
Should we do that? Should we do that the same day? Or should we separate those two, the public hearing and the administrative action?
I would do it the same day.
Okay. Okay. This is administrative action. This will be administrative action. It goes up
No,
for
this one's a legislative.
Legislative,
legislative. Okay, you're right.
because the legislature will make the action.
You'll make the recommendation.
To the legislation. Okay.
Until you voted on something.
Another bite at it, another bite of this one will be uses if we want to review uses. That's another piece of these apples and, you know, so there's lots of little pieces as we move this. So.
Okay, so we've got a motion to go ahead and move this on to public hearing. And we'll take the second by Bob, and all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And the motion to public hearing passes for amending City Code 1041. Okay, we're going to move on to moderate income housing strategies amendment. We've had a discussion or proposal. The proposal we received in this email, Tyler, is it the same proposal as last time?
It's a little different. I
Go
mean,
ahead,
it's
Scarlett.
pretty similar, but yeah, there are changes.
I incorporated the changes that we discussed last time. And I also changed the format a little bit to try and make the plan read. And if you think the other format was better, I can certainly change the other one. The other one was in a table that you had all the objectives lined up. Everything was linear. This is more horizontal. So you have the objective, then you have the strategy, the implementation plan, the timeline, and then you go to the next objective. My goal was just to try and make it as easy to read as possible. Couple of things, I corrected on strategy number 4 or objective number 4. In the timeline and specific measures, so I'm on page 405. I did say the current mixed use district allows for less parking spaces per unit than our other zoning districts, so I cleared that up. And then objective number 5 is a little bit different than the others because we actually use 2 strategies. Based on Joe's input, we put eliminate impact fees for accessory dwelling unit that is not an internal accessory dwelling unit is defined by section 109A 530. So we included that strategy in, I included that strategy in here, and everything else is actually very much the same. It's just formatted differently.
I
So,
like it. I like the format.
okay.
Okay, so Scarlett, share with me the 13. I thought there was 13 options we had to choose from.
Well, there's actually more than
There's
13.
24 that are on this document, right?
Well, that page,
I think it's page 2 or 3 where they were there.
yeah. That goes from A to X.
Yeah.
Now, some of those we have to strike out because we don't have station area plan. You're right, we don't have the transportation hub. So there's a couple of them that we just can't do. If there are other strategies, since you've had time to look at them, if there are other strategies that you feel are more appropriate or that you feel we need to add, we probably need to figure out the timetable, the steps and the timetables, and maybe perhaps create a new objective to add them, but we can certainly do that. What we have to do, we have to have a minimum of 3 if we want to just meet the state code. If we want to be considered for priority type status for funding from UDOT UDOT and the governor's office, then we need to adopt at least 5. And we've got 7, I believe, here that we are looking at. So I will also let you know that after our last meeting, since the changes were kind of minimal that we were making, Ryan and I felt like we needed to go ahead and submit our report anyway. And so I created a summary of a comparison support document that is quite similar to what I'm presenting to you tonight as far as strategies, in that document showed our strategy and which strategy we felt like it matched out of the state code strategies. And I submitted that, I created a section on our webpage that says moderate income, why do we have a moderate income housing plan? And you can click on that, you can see our current moderate income housing plan, you can see our support strategies, but I did submit our report. So we haven't heard back yet. I doubt we will because they probably had 82 reports submitted the last week of October. I'm sure there were some that got them done earlier, but at the conference in one of the classes at the conference that I was to last week, it sounded like they probably got a lot of them the last week of September. So anyway, but we'll wait and
Was
see.
there a lot of discussion at this conference about its objectives?
Yeah,
Sorry,
there was still kind of some confusion on implementing the report. It is a little bit of a tricky report to implement for smaller cities like us, where we don't have transit. We don't have, not really, I mean, Providence City in its entirety is less than 3 miles from end to end and side to side. So we would be considered the whole community walkable. And yet when you add our hillsides and our weather conditions, we really don't have walkable areas.
And a lot of the suggestions for moderate income housing revolve around transit and walkable areas. So communities like ours, which there are many, we're kind of struggling to utilize what the state has, to utilize their justifications for it and make it work in our cities. So there was some discussion about that. And they just kind of said, do your best you can. And so that's what we're doing. We're following the state code and doing the best we can. But if you want to go on and look on our website, you go to community development under the departments tab in the banner, and then you can scroll to the drop down list in there and find the moderate income housing.
Stay in there when you said, why do we have moderate income housing?
Yep,
Report that it's a state law
yes,
requirement.
it does. I quoted the state code and things like that so that it gives people, so that people understand this is not Providence City's idea. This isn't, the developers aren't pushing us to do this. They may have pushed the legislature, but they're not pushing Providence City. It's the state code that's pushing Providence City to accomplish moderate income housing opportunities.
I have one other question. If there's something on here that we don't adopt, that we don't put on our report, we're not restricted from trying to do that additionally, right? If we want to do that.
Right, that's one of the questions actually that was asked down there. And they said, well, you can always do more, you just can't do less. We kind of learned the hard way though. Sometimes being an overachiever, we can still do it, but not maybe in the formal plan. Because sometimes being an overachiever, then they raise the bar and you're held to this higher standard and it's more difficult to keep going that way. So I'm generally one that wants to be the overachiever, but I do think that we can still implement a specific plan and we can still utilize our existing ordinances to move forward with other ideas too. But I am more than happy if you feel really strongly about something to add it in.
If there's something that we in the future say, oh, wouldn't it be good for the community if we did this? And it happens to be with something on the list, and it's fine for us to go ahead and do that, right?
Yeah. Correct.
If UDOT builds a major transit center to Providence, we can do some, yeah.
We're coming.
The other thing about this, general plans, this is an element in the general plan. We're being very specific about this. We are not opening the entire general plan. We are opening one small section, just the moderate income housing element. We're not even redoing the basis of the moderate income housing element. We're utilizing the figures that we put into place in 2020 when we had to put the report in. We are just modifying our objectives and strategies to meet the ones listed in state code. So, but it does have to go to a public hearing, and then you will make a recommendation to city council, and then city council. It's a little bit different than what we just talked about. Well, the item we just talked about that Ryan and Tyler had put together on the name change for the zoning districts, that's an ordinance. So that will go into the code by ordinance. Our general plan in the state of Utah, general plans are still guidelines. We adopt ours by resolution, but it still has the effect. It supports the state code. And so just doesn't have a penalty if somebody doesn't follow it like an ordinance does. But
Question. I got two topics. One, we have a city planner. Is that what you just said, that she moved on?
County planner.
Oh, the county.
yeah.
I don't think it's- You are the, yes or not your title. Are you a city planner?
I'm not a planner, so I don't like to use that, but I kind of fill that role.
Okay, just want to get that clear. The other item, the wording that's used a lot For instance, on findings of fact, number 3. Sorry, it's moderate income housing. Is there a definition of moderate income housing?
Yes, in the state code, they actually
Is it 80,
define it.
is it 80%, or do you remember 80% of the median income?
Mhm.
Okay. So,
80% or lower, and then there's actually underneath moderate income, you also get down into low income as well, and I don't remember what that percentage is, but it does define what it's based on. And that is based on the county's median income. So,
I looked that part of it up, did some calculations, called a mortgage company, and a first-time home buyer who's got a few advantages to second-time home buyer could afford a home of a value of $280,000 today. That's based on about $48,000 in income, which is 80% of the median, which is the median is $60,000 in the valley. Okay, so that says that when we're talking about development of modern income housing, we're looking for properties at $280,000 or less to encourage the development of those. And the mortgage person that I talked to said the only thing that they know of generally, there's individual examples, is the Blackhawk units, 2-bedroom, 2-bath Blackhawk units. They're going for right around 280. And so I've got a real concern about trying to meet this standard, this moderate income housing. I'm not sure we can. I'm not sure the market can. And no matter what we do, of dropping the fees or anything like that, it's like, can't we get an exemption because there's nothing available like that in the county?
we just have to provide opportunities that a developer, and Ryan can actually speak to this a little bit better than I can, because I'm not familiar. Ryan's familiar with them. Rent cap and with assistance in rent and with assistance in mortgage payments and things like that. And so we just have to have ordinances in place that would not restrict somebody from trying to do something like that. So if we, for example, if we said everybody, we won't allow any development on anything less than 10,000 square foot lots, that pretty much knocks people that are trying to do something like that out of the park. They can't achieve their goal. But with 12 to 18 units per acre in our multifamily zones, they can probably work with HUD and achieve those kind of goals. So that's, and we do have one in Providence City. Providence Place is a HUD project that that does receive, the residents there do receive housing assistance in Providence Place. So, but that's the best we can do is not put up roadblocks. We can, but we're not creating, unless the city really wants to do that, and then we can look at some of those other strategies that they talk about, where they do talk about creating and rent restrictions and things like that. So, but we've taken more the route that we're going to provide ordinances that will allow somebody to utilize, if they want to go to the HUD or to work with them and partner with them, similar to how the Providence Place people did. We won't stand in their way. We'll try and get a zone that they could use, but we're not in the business of actually providing the assistance at this point.
Remember what the zoning is on Providence?
Providence Place?
Yeah,
It's what we currently call single family high. So 18 units per acre. So they had just a little bit over an acre and they had 22 units. And it's an interesting one because in apartment complexes, you were only required a certain amount of units to be ADA accessible. Every one of their units are ADA accessible, so.
Well, you've got a community there. It's a community.
Mhm.
They rely on each other and church is involved.
Yeah.
in,
It's been a pretty good success story for us, I think. But
Is there any requirement here of the number of units or the percentage of units going forward? The state's not putting any of that on us, are they?
well, we do, when we redo the whole general plan element, we will look at what the numbers are and we will. One of the problems that we have, and this is what we need to do this year, is really work on getting people to, we talked about it a little bit in the last meeting, getting people to let us know that they're using their house with an internal dwelling unit in it, so that we can get credit for that, that people are using some of the things that we say we're going to allow them to use. We need to get people to let us know that they are, so that we can show the state. We really do have some places that are probably, I doubt Providence City would come close to what the standard would be, but at least we can show we do have some that we're working with, more than just the 22 units that, because I do know there's a few people that are able to get the voucher programs through Bragg and things like that, and I can get those numbers, not the address locations, but I can get those numbers from Bragg to help us with those kind of things. But yes, if we could get people to let us know what they're doing with their accessory dwelling units, that would be very helpful. Because yes, there is a quota that we look at the end of the day.
Question that's related. I was traveling into work and Kevin, and you have a news article where university history department had students that had collectively put together the history of the Highland Market, and because it's got quite a little history down there, and I'm wondering if you couldn't do that in their land use up there. See if the students would help us do some type of survey to the residents to get not only their ideas on affordable housing, but also the inventory of people that, so you don't have to start calling around Joe Chambers and Frank Furman and then go around the corner to Lynn Hanford.
So let's go slower so we can get all those right now.
No, I don't think Frank's got it.
I just teasing you.
Lynn's probably got a handful.
We've been very fortunate with Utah State. They've done some things for us in land use, not something like this, and it's been a while since they did, but they've worked with our Historic Preservation Commission on several really nice history projects similar to what you're talking about. So it may be something that we could contact Utah State and see what they would be interested in doing.
I know Utah State has their, they do have a study that goes out to different communities, and that might be a question we added. Then it's not coming from the city it doesn't look like it's coming legislatively or through a penalty of some type. It's
Right.
just gives us data.
Yeah.
We can look at something like that. I don't know how available it is, but good luck.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thanks so much.
At this point, when it's ready, the next step is a public hearing on this one.
Yes.
Okay, so just so that you know where we're looking for it to head.
Thank you for taking the pressure off. And Ryan submitting this report. Felt a little pressure last time, like how important is it to get it done right this year because we're out of time. And I'm sure I'm hoping things go well with this report. I think we need a lot more discussion on this with the whole group. I can see, you know, I can see going down each one of the, what did you call these? Objectives. Going through each one of these objectives and strategies as a full group of commission members and deciding if that's something that we want, that fits.
Chair, the staff asked the planning commission or recommended the planning commission go through each one of those from our last meeting. That's why we're here. Is there any of those that would have been identified by any member of the commission that we have not included?
You're going on A, B, and C. And then W, E, and O.
I'm gonna read those again.
A, B, C. And then 4 is W. 5 is E and R. 6 is O.
I sort of thought you had addressed R, yeah,
Yeah. that's
R.
on number 5.
And that's when we added from last meeting.
From your comments. We're doing it, we should already take credit for it, right?
do that or hold it in advance for when you need to use it, bank it.
Both are options.
So if we eliminate the impact fees for accessory dwelling units, or internal accessory dwelling units, it's not costing us anything. It's not costing the city anything
Don't think so, but
because we're not, seeing any come through. 1 or 2, you said, in the last couple of years. Why don't you come sit over here?
Actually, I think that we're eliminating the impact fees for a detached accessory dwelling
I'm
unit,
sorry.
not the internal.
Detached.
And if they're not requesting a separate service, some people may want them to have a separate service. And if they're asking for a separate service, at this point, we would charge them an impact fee, but they have the ability to just utilize their existing services. And so then there's no impact fee if they use the existing services.
So it's an offer to them. So.
Yeah.
I like it because it doesn't cost anybody anything. And I have a real hard time with all this stuff. Rezoning for densities. Demonstrate investment. Does that mean we need to take money? Demonstrate investment in rehabilitation of existing uninhabitable housing stock to moderate housing. Demonstrate investment. Does that mean put money into it?
We put money into the streets in downtown to help revitalize our downtown area in order to, yes, and to invest into that area so that that housing stock would be able to be invested into from the public.
And we don't actually get into the nuts and bolts of the BRAG voucher program, but we direct people to BRAG for housing assistant vouchers. And we also talk to people about the historic preservation tax credits that can be utilized for some of the remodel and things as well. So that's how we're demonstrating we're trying to help rehabilitate, is that we're reaching out to other places to help.
But we're welcome to strike 2 off the list because we're already a bit of an overachiever. So if you want to take something off our list, we're
Yes.
looking at if they do application for a major transit investment quarter, I think you guys, we've done G. We amended the land use regulation to allow for higher density or new or or new moderate income resident in commercial and mixed use zones. Our mixed use ordinance allows for that.
It does.
And to the extent we have a transportation corridor with the bus, I mean, it may not be major as they define it, but it's major here in Cache Valley.
It won't be.
Yeah,
With the change in the bus system, it won't be major. So at that point, it will go the wrong way. Decentralizing in routes through Providence, so they'll turn into a Lyft and Uber kind of a thing. So we're going to go the other direction. So let's not add that to the list.
He explained what the future is, and we decided to keep that off.
We won't want that one.
that's inside knowledge you guys have.
But it's a great question, but it's one we won't be able to achieve. I mean, because of the major transit, we just won't.
So what action do we need to take on
Before we take action, can I just bring something up on objective 1? Under timeline. There's under current.
And the word,
Sub I, that first sentence there, 1 unit per 5 AC probably means acres.
mhm,
And then just below that, it says up to 18 units per net acre. We should be consistent, I think,
okay,
and spell it out or whatever, I think.
good catch. Thank you, Bob.
It seemed like there was another one, but
I might have done the same thing. And one other one.
I would also say one below that in 2, where it says, however, during the 2021 election, a referendum vote strongly indicates the majority of Providence city voters are against densities higher than 4 units per net acre. I don't know that that's what the referendum expressed. In that community, that was definitely the expression. But I don't know if it's throughout the city.
Arguably, from our follow-up survey, I would say it probably is.
We did do a follow-up survey to try and answer that question. And we got a resounding,
Out of my backyard.
And none of that density.
yeah,
So we would say that although that wasn't on the referendum, our follow-up efforts have clearly identified it as an issue.
Yeah, 8,000 and 12,000 square foot zoning districts. There's substantial housing in those areas.
They're just not liked.
yeah, we actually did have people argue quite extensively a few years ago about 10,000 square foot lots against them. So, and that's been within the last 5 years that they argued them. So I can reword that a little bit.
I'm
But
okay with it if that's the basis on it. I never understood the referendum to be that. I just knew it was most of the people that were involved in it were living up in that area. And they were quite vocal and active, but we're obviously not gonna tear down the 8,000 square foot lots and force people to have 1/4 acre lots.
no,
I think you ought to indicate somewhere in there that notwithstanding the referendum, the city has substantial
okay,
housing in those lower, higher density areas.
no more. No additional. So what the city said,
People don't want.
people don't want it.
It's like, oh, stuck.
It's trying to give the legislature and a notice that says we've tried to achieve, we've gone, we've done. But keep in mind that we have a second mandate or a second strong opinion that has been shared, and we want it documented that there's a strong opinion.
Utah Constitution. It says there's two ways to enact legislative laws. One by the legislature or county councils or city council, and two by the public.
Mhm.
And yeah, by referendum, and they're of equal power. And there's an interesting interplay when you pass a medical marijuana law. And right after that, the legislature goes in and fixes it. And everybody says, you know, you didn't listen to our referendum, but that was a perfectly legal act of the legislature to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and no one's lost their job at the legislature over it. But you know, I think that people have that power and you know, the constitutional right to do that.
I think we agree.
They do. We did want to, it's just our way to notify the state that we are really trying. But the people that have the right to do what they did, they spoke differently. So,
And that's why it's put as current, that we believe that is the current condition we're in.
And I guess if you wanted to strengthen that, then saying during the 2021 election, a referendum vote allowed by the Utah Constitution and people exercising their legislative power reserved to them by the Constitution voted it down. You know, if you don't want to do it, that's great. I'm just saying, if I were trying to make a you know, a note to the legislature as to what's going on, I'd throw that in their face. That look, our people have the legislative power to do that, and we did it.
We tried to put it in there with good intent and not to be too overly strong, but we can strengthen it as you'd advise either way. But we did want it noted that says, hey, keep in mind, there is more to this picture than just what the state legislature wants.
thank you.
How much money is involved? Say we didn't submit the report, just ignored it. And they said, okay, we're gonna take you off priority, we're gonna take you off all funding. They could do that, right?
They could.
How much money did we get last year? That we could
Class
possibly lose?
C,
400
420,
450
don't remember.
plus priority. I don't know. Let's say let's put it at $500,000.
$1 million in road sealing or road work.
Yeah. So that would be double if we did a 50% property tax increase. Just imagine that if you choose not to, what you're asking for is to go to the public and do a 50% property tax increase. I think you wouldn't be successful. I think we'll do our report.
Because we have to make up the road maintenance money. And our only other, if we take away the state funding and we take away the opportunity for grants out of the governor's office of economic, how do they call it now?
Budget and
That
economics,
name.
whatever it is.
Anyway,
Yeah.
if we take away those two opportunities, then really our only other source that you can count on really well would be property tax. And so you would have to make that up.
Agreed.
And I think the last property tax was a 25% increase. This would be
Double.
this would dwarf that.
So we're being extorted. Oh, I don't need
But
that.
we'd appreciate that not being in the record.
Okay, let me just talk. Did you see who's being extorted? The state wants something, so.
You know, the legislative Congress enacts a law and expects the states to pay for it. Don't fund it, the legislature does the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, do we need to get together with the other cities, call their bluff?
Have you called your state legislature yet?
Yeah.
Why don't you start with that? Let's have you start with that one, because I think that'd be a great start for you. I think he would, but I think the more votes and the more voice that our state representatives get on the issue, the more they have to be able to go back to their peers and colleagues. But if we haven't made our effort to have our voices heard from the planning commission, I know that city council has done some, but a planning commission reaching out to let them know of what that is, that always helps. I mean, they need help to do their job just like we need help to do ours. If you're ready to move it to a public hearing.
All in favor? All against? I just want to go on the record.
Well, I think
That means it fails. That means it fails. It has to, anything you vote on tonight has 3 votes. So that just means this item just failed. We have to have 3 votes to make anything because of the majority. With the voting here, it just doesn't go to vote. So
More rules and laws.
apologize. But if that's what you were doing, then that just died. Wait.
We're gonna take, and we're gonna talk about this motion again. Motion, we've got a second on the motion to take this legislative item,
Yes, it will be a
legislative item to public hearing. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's been in the unanimous, Tyler. Thank you. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Which we've never let out this early.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Sorry.
Yeah.
I
heard it.
Right. That there's an objective for W. Okay. But when I read, I don't understand what this means. It says to create or allow for and reduce regulations related to multifamily residential dwellings compatible in scale and form with detached single-family residential dwellings. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean
It's a
to
great question for your state representative.
create multifamily things that look like single-family houses?
That's how
I
I
would guess that it's confusing enough. It's a great one to grab a hold of. Weasel around if somebody ever came to put our feet to the fire on it. That's just my guess.
Yeah, okay, this was confusing to me.
There's some that are confusing to us too. I think that's a great question for a state legislator.
All right, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I like the idea. I want to note that it's 7:31 and that the 3 of us have done a really good job tonight. We really appreciate the staff being here and helping us out so that we could do a great job and get done on time. Motion is all in favor?